So hey everybody, it's TR. I'm back with another edition of Not on the Road, Not in the Cockpit, and it has been the month from hell. This story starts really up in Moab, Utah, just about a month ago, and I lost my car keys somewhere. I'm not sure where. I didn't realize it until way later in the day that I think I lost them, because I was at Wind Whistle Campground, as you saw me in episode 9 of On the Road. And it was getting late in the evening, and it was time to get things locked up and secured for the night. I'm not too concerned about it as far out in the woods as I was, but anyway, it's just a habit that I go through. And so I went to find my keys to remotely lock the car, and I couldn't find them anywhere. Man, I tore this RV apart, looked everywhere, in coat pockets, and I hadn't even wore a coat for days, weeks, months. And I mean, I literally tore this thing apart. And of course, by the time I got to looking around, outside it was dark. I did go out with a flashlight and kind of look around in the car to see if perhaps they were in there. Nothing. So as soon as the office opened, I called back up to Moab and asked them if they'd found any keys, and of course nothing had been turned in. And so I'm kind of resolved to the fact that I've lost my car keys. Of course I have spares everywhere. I've got a bunch of spares that I've got stashed in places, just in case something like this happens. And so I had put together a full set of keys again, with the exception that I could not find the key to the padlock for the chain that I lock my bike to my bike rack. I wrap a chain around it to make sure it doesn't get ripped off, because I'd had a bike stolen. It's been, probably 5 or 6 years now. But anyway, I lost a bike. And so I'd gone out and invested in a really hard, high-quality chain and a pretty good padlock. And so I ended up having to cut the padlock off with a, with my grinder. That being said, I spend my time at Wind Whistle, and I get things packed up, and I head on down to the Valley of the Gods in far southern Utah, about 20 minutes west of Bluff, Utah. And I'm all settled in and having a good day, and I've been out and had a couple of, been out doing what I like to do, which is explore the desert. And I'd been over to Hub and Weave, which is a national monument, and I'd made it up to Natural Bridges and up onto the Cedar Mesa, and had an amazing time driving the Mokai Dugway. And all of that footage and photos is coming in the near future, when I kind of get a little caught up, because I do admit that I'm kind of behind. Well, I'm going to try not to cuss in this month. that I've been focused on other things. I guess I must have been down at the Valley of Gods for 2 or 3 days, and the RV park from Moab calls me, and they found my keys. Oh man, I'm so excited, because now I'm not going to have to go spend a couple $100 to get a new replacement remote key. But in my excitement, I failed to identify the keys maybe sufficiently enough for the clerk on the phone. And so I just hurry up and kind of pack a few things up here and go jump in the car and head on up to Moab to recover my car keys. And it's a 3.5 hour drive. I didn't measure it, but it was at least 3 hours back up to Moab. When I get there, they're not my keys. And in fact, they had been claimed, which was kind of irritating, but it's okay. They didn't even bother to call me that, hey, somebody had come and claimed those keys, so obviously they weren't yours. So I get there, of course, find out they're not my keys. I turn around and head back to the Valley of the Gods. In my hurry and excitement to go back and get my keys, I left the RV and I left the awning out. And I guess you probably know where this is going. Some thunderstorms were projected to be in the area for the day, and like I say, normally I never leave the RV with the awning out. The automatic wind sensor hasn't worked for a couple of years now. By the time I got back to the RV from the 6-hour run to Moab and back, apparently a thunderstorm had rolled through and completely blew the awning right off the RV. I mean, when I got back, the canvas was in shreds. I guess it's probably not canvas, it's vinyl, but either way, the covering was in shreds. The support arms are all bent up, and it's just a mess. So basically I take that all apart, and I literally had to cut it up into pieces so that I could get it in my car and take it and dispose of it properly, because I'm out dry camping. There's no services, there's no garbage cans or anything like that. I actually ended up hauling it into a tipping station near Mexican Hat, Utah. Anyway, it's all good, right? This is life, and things happen. I should say happens. And it's okay, I'm a pretty laid-back guy, maybe a little bit upset with myself for, getting in a hurry and not, going through my normal routine, but, it is what it is. Well, while I'm at the Valley of the Gods, I get news that, another family member, if you will, has very serious illness, some kind of a brain tumor. They're not sure what's causing it, but I'm kind of concerned. And I'll be honest with you, I'm still feeling a little melancholy about the passing of my friend Don this past summer. And that's not the only one. I haven't mentioned a lot of them because I tend to kind of keep my posts, a little bit more positive. But unfortunately, this one isn't so positive because it's just been a bad year for that. I guess it's just my age and that my peer group is, aging as I am and getting some very, very serious illnesses. So that's been a little bit hard on me over the last couple of months. It's been in my mind that, I probably need to take better care of myself, but that's another subject for another video. To be honest with you, I think what's bothering me most is every time I've made firm plans this summer, which is completely opposite to the way I normally run. I know I'm going to be in this particular area around this particular time. I don't have any specific set plans usually, but I'd made plans this summer to spend some time with some friends and go do some stuff. In fact, a friend of mine from the Sun Valley area and I had planned a 2-week road trip over to Oregon. We were going to hit the Oregon coast, go to Crater Lake, and do all those sorts of things. But my situation changed because of some serious illnesses in my friends and family, which changed my situation. I think what's bothering me most about that is that for most of my adult life, I've been very schedule driven. And I worked in radio for years, and I had a 6 a.m. morning show, and you were there at 6 a.m. I mean, the clock's ticking. And in fact, you were really there at 4:30 because you needed to do show prep. And then later in my adult life, I was project manager, and project management's all about schedules and keeping your commitments and not letting things slip. And so that's been really hard on me that I've had to change these plans, these commitments I've made to people, because that's just, it really rubs me the wrong way that I have to do those things. But when your life situation changes, you really don't have a lot of options. You just have to go do what you have to do. So I'm continuing my migration south, maybe a little faster than what I'd anticipated, because I want to try to get down to Tucson and do what I can to help these people out. I find myself broke down in Camp Verde, Arizona, which is probably 50 miles south of Tucson not Tucson, which is probably 50 miles south of Flagstaff on I-17. And I'm probably 2 or 3 miles from the exit into Camp Verde, and I noticed that my power steering's gone out. Now, I've been through that before. Because when I had the motor changed, when I had the engine changed, I should call it. Don't call it a motor because it's not electric. An engine is gas or fuel powered. But when I had the engine changed out, there was a mechanical issue that first cropped up right after they changed the engine out, and I lost my power steering in that particular case. And so I'd been through that before, and so I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, it's something with the engine. I mean, you never know what it is. But what happened is that probably 30 seconds after I noticed the power steering was out, the coach overheated like that. It went from normal operating right around 190 degrees rolling down the road up to 250 in 30 seconds. I don't know exactly how long it took, but it was pretty fast because all of a sudden the overtemp light, the overtemp alarm, came on at 250 degrees, and I happened to glance down because, serious situation when you don't have power steering and you got 35,000 pounds rolling down the road with you. So luckily I was only 2 or 3 miles from the Camp Verde exit, and so I was able to limp into Camp Verde. But I'm telling you what, I had to make a left turn to get in. I found, luckily, seriously luckily, I found a vacant lot that I could park in right off the interstate. So I kind of worked my way into that, but I had to make a left turn. I had to wait for traffic. I'm putting everything I got in to get in this thing turned and get into this parking area and get stopped. And so, of course, I jump out to go see what's going on. And I walk around the back of the coach, and I wish I'd had a camera with me because this is so hilarious. But I was just so not in this space of recording or taking photos. But there was literally a geyser of hot 300-degree coolant spraying out of the back of the RV. All over the back of the RV, all over the car. Now, that's in addition to the 3 or 3.5 gallons of hydraulic oil that blew down and out the back of the RV when what it turned out to be was I had a hose that failed. it rubbed through on the frame. And so I had a hydraulic hose fail, and man, my car was destroyed. It cost me $10 at the quarter car wash, and it's still not clean. There's still like 2 of the window seals. When I roll the windows up and down, they'll leave an oily film on it, the window itself, and so it's kind of a mess. I might actually have to change the seals out. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I've been trying to clean them with orange cleaner, but not getting too far. I'm afraid I'm going to have to take the doors apart and maybe replace the window seals and the doors to, you know, get them cleaned up. I'm going to keep working on it because that sounds like a lot of work. You might remember in episode 9 I showed you that the surge tank, which is this tank that holds antifreeze coolant, if you will, from the radiator, was leaking a little bit. And you know, I'd been through 2 or 3 of those, but apparently the pressure, I got the engine pretty hot, I will say, and by the time I got off the interstate, it had blown the side of that tank out. So I knew it was leaking. Now it's leaking seriously because it was probably, you know, severely compromised to start with. That surge tank, by the way, is just like the overflow reservoir in your automotive, in your car or your truck. You know, it just keeps excess. It just holds a little extra coolant because things change as you roll down the road. So I go on and I get on the phone with my Good Sam Roadside Assistance, and she calls me back within 30 minutes, and she's got a mechanic lined up, but they can't find somebody to tow me. Now I have no cooling, I have no power steering, and I had tried to put some oil in and start the rig up, but by the time I got back to to look and see where the leak was, the oil had all run out. I mean, there's a big puddle on the ground, and so it did help me understand that I probably had a broken hose. And I probably could have limped in to the repair shop with the coolant issue, but probably not the power steering issue, because I didn't know the route, didn't know what the turns were going to be. It probably could have been a huge pain in the ass, and it turns out it probably would have been, but that's a story that's coming here in a minute. Trust me. This month does not get better. It gets worse by far. I will say that despite my loathing of Camping World, because it's a Good Sam entity, the Good Sam Roadside Assistance has been pretty solid. I mean, when I was talking to the gal on the phone, she mentioned that she had called every towing company within a 60-mile radius of me, and they couldn't find anybody to come tow me till 9 or 10 o'clock that night. It's Sunday. I had talked to the mechanic, and of course they weren't open, but they were going to come and meet me at the shop, and I'm thinking, well, I don't want to pay Sunday rates and all this sorts of things. So with them being so late to tow, I just said, well, you know what, I'll just stay here for the night and schedule them to come and pick me up at 9 o'clock in the morning. I mean, luckily I was safely parked, in a vacant lot, and nobody was hassling me about being parked there. So, I felt pretty good about that. I'd have probably been more upset if I'd have been sitting on the side of the interstate, and at that point I probably would have waited till 9 or 10 o'clock that night, which would have been 8 or 9 hours, because this is about 2 o'clock when everything started coming down. It takes 3 hours and 2 tries for this tow truck driver to get me hooked up and get ready to roll down the road. And I'm starting to get a little nervous, because the first thing this driver did was, when he's putting these, they have these forks that they put on this rig, right, so they can come around and they can get forked onto your wheels and pick you up by the wheels. Here's a picture of it. But he put one of those on upside down and couldn't figure out why he couldn't get things to work. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that should have been warning sign number 1. But the story gets a little deeper, because the night before, at about 7:30 or so, I'm sitting there and the phone rings, and it's another local towing company who apparently had been called by Good Sam to come tow me, and they had told him that they couldn't tow me. Well, apparently somebody from the towing company had come by and checked it out, and they could tow me. This guy went on to tell me a couple of horror stories about the towing company that was coming to get me, and then how he had never heard of the mechanic that I had made arrangements to have work on the rig, and all this and that. Now, I've watched Tow Truck Wars or some other crappy reality TV show enough to know that he was just basically out there trying to poach my business. Turns out the mechanic was great. I mean, he actually came over in the morning on Monday while the incompetent tow truck driver was trying to get me hooked up. And I showed him what the problem was and said, it looks to me like it's probably a broken hose, and told him I'd added, all that stuff. So after 3 hours, 2 heart attacks, 1 major anxiety attack, we're finally on the road headed towards the repair shop. And it's only like 6 miles down to this repair shop. I'm like, it's nothing. The problem was that 5 of those 6 miles, the road was under construction, and they were putting these roundabout ins about every mile or so, and they had the damn lanes coned off, and they were pushing everybody to the inside lane. And so here's this tow truck. He's already 60 feet long or so probably, and then my RV another 40 feet, and So we're probably 100, 110 feet of length, shoved into the inside radius of these damn roundabouts. We're holding up a mile of traffic because he's trying to go slow. But as we're going down the road, the RV is rocking and turning, and I can just see this thing landing on its side on one of these corners because he's making these, he's having to make these really tight turns. He didn't climb any curbs, but he came close a couple times. He scalded one curb, but with the side of the tire, and what are you going to do, right? I mean, at this point, I'm committed. So we're twisting and turning around these damn construction zone, these roundabouts and all this crap, and we get up to the road we need to turn onto, and it's coned off. You can't get to it. So he whips over and goes through the cones and pulls up in front of this road onto this area that they were working on. There wasn't anybody there actively working, they just had it coned off. And he jumps out and goes and talks to the construction people. So they move the cones, and so he could back in and get down onto this road we have to get onto to go down to the repair shop. And he flags me over, and I'm like, yeah, what's going on? Well, I'm already kind of a little wound up. Well, saying a little wound up is probably being a little, let's see, optimistic. That's the word I was looking for, optimistic. But he calls me over and he says, I need you to run spotter for me because we've got some washes we have to go through, and I don't want to drag the ass end out of your RV. And so, my anxiety level went from an 8 to about a 14. I'm thinking, oh my God, here we got to go through some of these washes. Now, one of the things that prevents me from going to a lot of these dry camp or boondock places that I'd like to go to is that I have to traverse through like washes and stuff. So I'm running ahead of this guy, and I'm watching, making sure that he's, because he's adjusting the height of the front of the RV to keep the ass in from dragging as we go through these washes. To be honest with you, I'm seriously freaking out, and I'm really worried that I'm not going to get, the RV's not going to get to the repair shop in one piece. There's something you got to know about being a full-time RVer if you're not one. Our whole life is in our rig, right? All of our possessions. Now, I admit I've got a storage unit out near my dad that I've got some furniture in, and a big flat screen TV and some of those things that I didn't want to get rid of when I was downsizing. But for all intents and purposes, my life is right here on these 6 wheels. And so I'm super protective of it, really careful about, what goes on with it. Because, if a situation happened, I could be basically homeless. Not a situation you want to find yourself in. But anyway, I'm pretty close to freaking out and seriously wondering if we're going to make it to the repair shop in one piece. We get down to where the shop is supposed to be, where Google said they were, and they're not to be found anywhere. And I'm like, Jesus, Now, I'm like, F me. This day can't get any worse. Well, it can. Stand by. It gets worse before it ever gets better. But I'm pissed off now. Everybody knows I'm pissed off. And this driver, I mean, he was a big guy, but he took a couple steps back because, man, I was fit to be tied. I'm on the phone with the repair shop, man. I'm eating these guys' ass. Why the hell didn't you tell me you'd moved, and this and that and the other thing, It wasn't Google's fault, right? I mean, it was the company's fault, the repair shop's fault for, probably not going on and changing their address on Google. And they're 13 miles clear on the other side of town. I'm like, Jesus, God, we got to go back through Roundabout City, and, I just want this to be done. I just want to be safely parked at the repair shop. Well, as I said, I got on the phone with the repair shop, and we figured out where they were. I got a physical address, plugged it into my phone so I knew where we were going, gave it to the tow truck driver. Oh, which, by the way, another side story, which should have been warning sign number 2, is the guy didn't even know where he was supposed to tow me. How do you go to tow a vehicle and you don't even know where you're supposed to tow it to? I mean, come on. Warning signs 3 through 10 should have been the 3 hours and all the time it took him to get hooked up, because I've been towed before. And every time it takes about an hour is about what it takes, by the time they get the rig set up and they get the wheels shot, they get everything put together, and then they have to go back and disconnect the drive line so they can tow these things. We got to go 13 miles back across town, and there is no place to turn around. And where are you going to turn around 120 foot worth of frickin' rig, if you will? So he told me, he says, the only way out of here is back down this road, and unfortunately there's a couple miles of gravel that we have to cover. And I'm thinking, okay, that's no big deal. I've covered gravel roads in the RV before, but nothing like this. This thing was so washboardy, and he's going like 25 miles an hour. And I can just see in the cabinets just going everywhere, and they're just, not only that, but you take all that dirt and dust that's coming up off the back of that RV and you add it to that oil and antifreeze that's on the back of everything. You know, it's all over the back. And man, I had a mess. I mean, there was a 1/4 inch of sludge on the back of the RV. Of course, my bike, my tow bar, my butt, everything was just completely oiled and filthy. Well, we finally get over to this new repair shop, or to the new location of the repair shop. And he can't make the turn to get into it. It's too tight. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, will this day never end? And we're not even to the repair piece of this yet, right? We're still just getting this thing towed, and we're now 5 hours into this tow job, right? So he can't make the turn into the repair shop. We have to go to the end of the road, which is another washboardy dirt with great big swales in it, you know, and I have to run spotter for him so he doesn't drag the ass out of the RV to get down and get turned around and we get back. Well, he pulls in to turn around and he's backing up and he backs the back of the RV into this shrub, if you will. You know, it was a creosote bush, but it scraped the back of the RV. This stuff I could fix. And at this point, I just wanted this over. I want to be at the repair shop, this tow truck driver gone from my life. He was a nice guy, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he towed a lot of RVs, and it was so stressful. I mean, you know, at this point, I'm having a heart attack. I'm having this huge anxiety attack. You know, I just want this guy gone from my life. Well, the mechanics turned out to be really nice guys. You know, you know, the guy was a certified diesel technician. He'd worked for Rush Truck or something, you know, and they checked out. I mean, I checked him out pretty thoroughly because, like I said, I was worried about the CAT warranty problem. But we get into it, and within 15 minutes, you know, he's figured out that where this hydraulic hose had been zip tied to the frame to keep it from moving around, it had basically rubbed the hose. No big deal. In most every small town, if there's a parts store with any kind of agriculture, you're going to be able to get hydraulic hose made, so that wasn't a huge deal. But the problem was that that surge tank had blown the side out, and it was going to be the next day before they could get one shipped in from Flagstaff. And I just told the guys, you know, look, I don't have anything else to do. It's only 50 miles up to Flag. I'll just run up and get the tank. I'll pick up some parts that you need. You know, if you need anything else, just call them and have them put it on up there. And so I run up to Flag and I get the parts and I get back and he's got the hose on and everything's cool. That's repaired. It only took him like 15 minutes to get the surge tank on. We put 6 gallons of pre-mixed antifreeze in, so I blew out a lot, and 3 gallons of really hydraulic fluid. It's really just Dextron 3 automatic transmission fluid, but that's what they use in these hydraulic systems. He stays late, and by 7:30, 8 o'clock, I'm safely pulled out into their parking lot. Slides are out. They even let me get some water because I needed a shower because I was just destroyed. You know, I was filthy from having been around the greasy back of that RV, on the ground a bunch, trying to, you know, it was just, I was filthy and I wanted a shower. All I wanted was a shower, a little bit of food, some whiskey, and to go to bed and put this day behind me. And you'd think that's a pretty simple thing, but that's the way things go sometimes. So, like I said, it's 8 o'clock or so. I'm nestled safely away in their parking lot. Slides out. Getting ready to go take a shower. And I'm super tired. I mean, I'm just exhausted. It's been such a stressful day, you know, and finally my stress level's coming down. I feel like a good hot shower and a couple drinks of whiskey will probably set me right. So I'm ready to jump in the shower, and I go get in the medicine chest for something, and a box with a bottle of aftershave in it I've been packing around for 2 years because I don't really wear aftershave, but it tumbles out of the medicine chest onto the floor, and happened to be my big toe was between that box and the floor, and pretty sure I broke my toe. I mean, it's like effity, 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 F, 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 and I'm stumbling around crying, cussing, you know, and the part of that really pissed me off was I'm having a discussion with myself as I'm driving back from Flagstaff, thinking about, you know, how rough the tow job was, and that I needed to be careful and probably go through and open all my cabinets really carefully and grab anything that's going to fall out, because you'll find this as you roll down the road, things shift around a little bit, you know, if the road's rough, and sometimes stuff will fall out of the cabinets. Well, in this case, I think I probably broke my toe because it still hurts. I've got it taped to the toe next to me. It's my big toe on the right foot. It still hurts to walk on. Just another stupid move. You know, I thought about maybe checking these cabinets, but I didn't. Well, I'm getting a shower done. Time for a whiskey. And normally for me, it's like, I call it 4 fingers and 5 rocks. A double rocks glass with 4 fingers of whiskey in it and 5 rocks. Well, this has been a bad day, so I'm like 6 fingers, let's see, 6 fingers and 5 rocks. And I'm sitting down and I'm thinking, yeah, you know, it might be good to have some food. And so I jump up and go to get in one of the cabinets to get a snack or something, and I'd be damned if a glass bottle of this Chinese barbecue sauce, hoisin, I guess is really Korean, but it tumbles out of the cabinet because I didn't open the cabinet with enough care, and completely slipped my mind again that I needed to go through and check all the cabinets and put everything back, you know, away. And then it tumbles out, falls on the kitchen floor, shatters, there's glass and Chinese barbecue sauce everywhere. I'm just like done, man. I go sit down in my chair, pour myself another whiskey, and I'm thinking, you know, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Well, the next day I'm up at like 3 a.m. because I can't sleep. I've been having trouble sleeping anyway. I've been waking up at 4 a.m. and the time rolling back an hour when I dropped into Arizona combined with my already getting up early added insult to injury, and I'm up at 3 a.m., can't get back to sleep. And I still needed to reassemble all of my tow rig and all my bike rack and all that stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, as bad as luck has been rolling for me here lately, I better do that when the sun's up. So I waited for the sun to come up. I go out and I put everything back together. And of course, I'm really super careful when I'm rigging my car to the RV, because my biggest fear is that car comes off the ass into that RV and I kill somebody when I'm rolling down the interstate at 65 miles an hour because my car detaches. So I'm really careful about that. And I have a brake system on it and all that stuff. So it's, you know, it's not a big worry, but I figured with the way things have been going, that's going to be the next thing that happens. Anyway, no worries, I'm out there by 7:30 with a plan to stop at a rest stop about 60-70 miles north of Phoenix for an hour and a half, and kind of let traffic clear out so I don't have to drive through rush hour traffic in Phoenix. And plus, there's a hell of a hill that you have to climb coming out of Camp Verde. You must gain probably 3,000 feet in altitude over 6 or 7 miles. I know it's like 7 straight miles of 6% grade. And I was kind of concerned because the engine had got pretty hot enough to blow that tank apart. I was worried that I'd done some trouble, you know, I'd done some damage to the engine because I got it hot. And so I was trying to hedge my bet and get out of there early in the morning because it was cool, and that would give me a little bit more leeway if things started to overheat, because I knew I had this climb to make. Well, I get on, oh, and by the way, if you don't know this, when the air is cool, it's denser and there's more oxygen in it, so you actually have a little bit more energy or a little bit more power, if you will. Well, I get out on the road, I come up to highway speed, and the power steering is just herky-jerky. You know, you can feel it surging, you know, you know, I'm thinking, oh no, you know, well, I'm sitting there logically thinking about this on this climb, and one of the things you don't want to do is if you're on a long grade like that, you don't want to stop. There's no exit, right? So I'd have been pulling off the side of the road. You lose your momentum, you never get it back, right? Especially in a big rig like that. So I'd have been crawling up that hill at 15 miles an hour. And frankly, the motor was running great. You know, it was staying cool, other than the herky-jerky power steering, which I figured was probably just air in this system. I figured it'd probably settle itself out, so I run all the way up to that rest area. And sure enough, I had to add 2 quarts of transmission fluid to the hydraulic system. And I sat there for an hour and a half, and by the time I got 10 minutes south of that rest area, the power steering had settled down, and it's just fine now. So, like I said, I think it was just air in the system that had to work its way out. To be honest with you, it was more annoying than anything, but with, you know, the run of luck I'd been on, I was just expecting to blow, I was just expecting to blow up. I think I'm going to go ahead, this is already a long enough video, I'm going to make this into 2 parts, so if you want to catch up and see what happened the rest of the month, be sure and subscribe. And I'm just going to hunker down, I'm going to let the storm blow over, I'm going to do some hiking and biking and try to, you know, maybe get reset mentally. And I'm going to start working on some RV how-to videos. I've had some things that I've repaired. I did have a starter motor capacitor on one of the ACs fail, so I've got a video on repairing that. Replacing my blinds, finally. Yeah, I know it's been over a year. In fact, it was a year ago that I mentioned that I was upset and discouraged and tired of my blinds, and I was going to replace those, so I'm finally getting around to that. I'm going to be installing some better power monitoring equipment to monitor how much power I use, and then I need to fix the charge controller for my chassis batteries on the RV. It's working, but it's not working really well. I'm not exactly sure what's wrong with it. I haven't dug into it yet, but I know it's not working correctly. I can tell because I've got a meter that I can tell where, you know, how good it's working, and it's just not working right, so I'm not sure what's gone on there. But I guess that's life in a 14-year-old RV. There's always tons to do and tons of things to fix. Thanks again. Don't forget to subscribe and share and all of that. And I think I'll shut up and get out of here. Thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. Until we get together again for part 2 of The Month from Hell, welcome to my nightmare. That's it. Peace. Bye.
Feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing.